The Pit Press Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Road to the Pit. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. I'm joined by my co-host, my son, Nick Nunez, an announcer and producer for ProView Networks, also a former assistant coach with St. Pius High School under four-time state champion head coach Damian Segura. Coach Nunez, welcome to the show.
Dad, thanks for having me on. Excited to speak with Coach Greg Brown about the exciting run that Volcano Vista has had.
As you mentioned, our guest is Volcano Vista boys head coach Greg Brown. Coach Volcano Vista Hawks made history on Saturday. You defeated Oregon Mountain 47-34 in the 5A state championship game. You became the first Metro 5A school to three-peat in boys basketball. That's a heck of a feat, Coach. It really is. Your program is an unbelievable 88-2 over the last 3 years. Congratulations, Coach. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Coach. I got to tell you a funny story. My son's got me on an outline because he knows I'm prone to chat a lot, right? And go with these side stories.
No, that's good. That's good. That's what
got
old
a
guys
million
do.
of them. Yeah. Anyway, Coach, a special moment for your program that you had time to digest the moment. And I've known you a long, long time. Talk about what you appreciate the most about this season, your third consecutive championship run. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great experience. It's always a great experience when you end your season with a win. Kids were outstanding this year. We had we're overloaded with underclassmen. Our junior class we had about 7 of those guys on varsity, and we only had 2 seniors. And so that was going to be the question mark this year, is that how can we, last year we had a great senior class. The year before we had an outstanding senior class. Are 2 seniors going to be enough? Can our juniors lift up the leadership and carry us and, play like seniors this year? And then also defensively, that was going to be a big thing, going into the X's and O's. Can we defend at the highest level, a high enough level to be the best that we can? And so it took us a while, but throughout the season, a lot of those questions were answered. Our seniors, our 2 of them, David Gutierrez and Davon Smith, stepped up, and David was our leader this year with the help of some of our underclassmen. And defensively, we got things done. We kind of shored up some things, and it was mostly an effort and focus type of thing. And so down the stretch of this season, we were able to play our best and culminate with a nice win against Oregon Mountain on Saturday.
Yeah, it turned out to be a great season, and I got to tell you that I'm going to turn this over to my son here. Rocky Gonzalez and I had talked quite a bit. I had him on my show. He's a great guy. He really is, and he was really pointing towards that moment. But he said, Coach, he said to me, we have to really take care of business, and they did. They got to where they wanted to be, but it's a little different when you go up against the defending champions. I know they gave you everything that they had, and they're a good team, but that's how good your team is, and I think we need to harp on that 3 times. Straight three-peat. It's not easy. 1 champion is hard. 1 championship, that. 3 is unbelievable. Nick.
Coach, I had your very first game of the year against St. Pius. And I remember interviewing you after the game. And as you just alluded to, one of the things that you said was you thought your team could be better on the defensive end of the floor. I think the words you used were you wanted your team to start with more urgency on the defensive side of the ball. And you've talked about how you had some underclassmen this year, only 2 seniors. This year in the state championship, you held Yanai Wilson, phenomenal player, to 11 points on 2 of 9 shooting, and you held Brandon Carries to 3 points. Talk about how this group in particular bought into your style, bought into playing defense to your standards.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and it was a work in progress. It was we had some moments early in the season where it was frustrating. And you wondered if these 5 guys could connect with each other defensively. Never really had an issue offensively, just because of our talent level and their willingness to share. But for some reason, once we crossed half court, and we started trying to play defense, things just got more too comfortable, too relaxed. And a lot of times we were struggling ending the possession with a rebound. And so we knew all year long that was going to be our thing, and that was going to be our challenge. And then going against these teams down the stretch, Cleveland upset us at the Hobbs tournament. In our defense, we gave up 55% from the field that night. It's the only time we gave up over 50% from the field the entire year. But that was a wake-up call for us. That was a game where the proof was in the pudding. We kept telling them, we're going to have our bumps, man. There's going to be one coming if we don't fix this, if we don't focus more defensively. And when I say focus, it's more like 5 guys needed to be all on the same page defensively, just like they were offensively. And so eye-opener for us. Got Cleveland on our schedule the first day or the first game of district. So actually played Cleveland a week later in the Metro Championship and defended them, held them under 40 or under 50 points, and then got them again a couple times in district. And then had to deal with a Trisco Heritage, who was super hard for us to defend. And seeing them on our same side of the bracket in the state tournament, really made us focus and anticipate that we're going to play them again. And instead we got La Cueva, who presented a challenge for us, especially on the glass, with their length and size. And then to finalize the season, we had Oregon Mountain. And the biggest thing about Oregon Mountain was just how hard they play. And if you don't rebound the ball defensively, they're going to beat you, because a big part of their game is second and third chances. And going into the halftime of the game against Oregon Mountain, we're down 4 points, but we're down 13 rebounds. We got out rebounded 26-13 in the first half. And so as a point of emphasis, here we go again. This is this is like our season all over again. We're not rebounding the ball. We're not finishing these plays. And so it was really up to our guys, that if they wanted to do this. And the second half, we rebounded it better. We did a great job on Brendan Karras. We had to try to keep the ball away from Yanai Wilson's hands. And then we had to start hitting some shots, and all those things happened and led us to a championship.
Dad, I'll turn it back to you.
Coach Brown, you mentioned that. I saw you, after you lost to Cleveland. And I remember saying this to you, and, again, you and I have known each other many, many years. And I think sometimes we don't want to lose. We don't, but it resets things. You can tell your guys, hey, I've been telling you, I've told you, because you're winning. You never coast. Your team never, ever coasts, ever, never. But sometimes when kids are kids, that's why they're 15 and 16 years old. And I think sometimes it reset that. It reset the attitude. You mentioned defensively, the Volcano Vista culture, 88-2 is incredible. Somewhere Papa's like, wow, that's my son, man. You're right. He's definitely doing that. Unbelievable. So I think with the culture you've established there, it's expected that you'll win. It's expected. Coach, of all the players, you have on your team, they all contribute. But 2 guys who get a lot of attention are Kenyon Owino and David Lund. Both are very, very talented players. Owino, 18 points, 13 points, 18 points and 13 rebounds. You mentioned hitting the glass. He always hits it. And we also wanted to focus on David Lund, the freshman, who's, a man-child. He's incredible, right? He's a freshman. He has a grown man's body on him. If he gets in the paint, forget it. It's done. It's over. He had 14 points in the state championship against Oregon Mountain. He had 2 phenomenal dunks in the state tournament. Tell us what it was like coaching David Lund this season.
David Lund was it was such a blessing to have him, and we're just getting started with David. And he came through the ABC program, so he is very accustomed to playing at a high level. And so he wanted to be in high school this year, and we're very thankful that he made that choice. And so we had to we've known David for a while, and he's been in our gym and worked out. He lives right up the street from our school. And so, but we just never knew that if David was going to want to do this or not, just because there's a lot of options for kids now. And so when David and his family made the choice for him to come to Volcano Vista, we knew to start him slow. And it was one of those things we wanted to introduce him to, kind of like how we do things. And and give him a little bit at a time. But man, he like took off running, as you guys know. I mean, he's such a phenomenal open court player, and transition player. And when he does get downhill on drives, he is extremely hard to stop. And it used to be just kind of right-handed, when he gets down that right lane. And so throughout the year, he worked on his left side, and he worked on being able to float over the top of some of these big kids. And he worked on hitting a 3-point shot, which he shot over 50% from the field, from the three this year. And he got to the free throw line. And the defense for Dave, he's still learning, he's still growing, he's still, and figuring that part out. But having him as an additional weapon to Kenyon made coaching pretty easy this year on the offensive side.
Yeah, you know what? When I interviewed him after one of the games, just a very mature, respectful young man. Everything was yes sir, no sir, but incredible elevation, incredible strength, incredible power for a 14-year-old young man. And you think when you were telling me about him driving right, and now he's driving left, and he's shooting 50% from 3-point land, and he's a freshman, I'm thinking, my gosh, man, the future, right? The future, just win one. And as coaches, you're always thinking about what's next. Nick,
right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Coach, I wanted to take you back to your start at Volcano Vista. I remember when you took the job at Volcano, Coach. I was actually still playing, and it must have been 2007 or 2008. You didn't start with the varsity team. I think you started with the C team or JV.
Right.
Your first year in varsity competition, you guys go 3-24. The following year, you take Volcano Vista to the Class 4A state semifinals. Talk about some of those early Volcano Vista teams you had with guys like Mario Molina, Sam Haywood, Seth Warfield, and what those guys accomplished.
Yes, sir. So one of my more proud moments, I guess, or just why we do it is, and I learned this from my dad, it's just make it about the people, the wins and, those always will, if you do things right, those usually take care of themselves. So prior to these games, especially these late season runs, I always reach out to the alum, and it brings me a lot of joy to do so. And just sending him a text saying, hey man, we're going to try to do this thing. And thanks for laying this foundation, and going all the way back to that 2010 team that was, prior to the 2010 season, we only won 3 games. And it was a very humbling experience coming from Monzano, where we had some good success, and then, starting over at Volcano, but just trying to keep our focus on like, how can we keep this thing progressing? And that 2010 team, and Nick, we played against you guys a few times in district, had some good battles with you guys. And it was a special group because, they kind of introduced winning to the program, to Volcano Vista. And, hey, if we do these things, if we stick to this process and we continue to work every day, then we have a chance to improve. And so that was a great start for us. That was when the school was brand new and everybody was excited, and to get to the Final Four that year was pretty special.
Yeah. And then, Coach, we have to recap some of your other state championships. The 2017 run, you guys were a 12 seed. You finished 4th in district that year. You beat Rio Rancho, the defending champion, in overtime, beat El Dorado by 1 in the quarterfinals. And then you beat Atrisco by 4 in the semifinals. And then you beat Las Cruces in the state championship by 8. Just an incredible run by a double-digit seed. Kind of recap that one for us, Coach, if you can.
That one was an amazing run. We went into the state tournament losing 6 straight. And I remember there was some type of perfect storm going on, because there was we were able to take 4 days away through a break we had, and through the setup of the schedule, 4 to 5 days. And the kids came back, and it was like a start of a new season. And we had an unbelievable X factor that year, which was David Cormier. And just athletically, he was so special. And we knew that if any game we could get a lead, then we could just spread you out a little bit and give him the ball in the middle of the court and just let him, like David Lund, get downhill and let things happen. And sure enough, in every one of these games, which were very close, we got a little lead down the stretch, and we just put the ball in David's hands and let him go down the middle. And a lot of times it resulted in dunks or free throws. And that team was a very, very underrated, unified group. We had sophomore Jelante Gray, a junior, and Jarrell Phillips. And David was one of our only seniors. And that year we hung in there defensively, played really smart, really took care of the ball, and were really patient offensively. And when we needed a bucket, we went to David, and he kind of carried us down the stretch there. Special year, and it was fun to reach out to those guys as well as we were progressing through the state tournament this year.
Dad, I'll turn it over to you.
David Cormier was an amazing, he's a football player and played for Air Force. And, Coach, you've been blessed with some phenomenal talent, but they've been blessed with your coaching as well, over the years. And looking back on Gray, I remember him. I remember those players. And it seems like yesterday, and look at you now with the three-peat. And, I know you give a lot of credit to your players and your fantastic assistants there, too, who've been with you a very long time, and you got to build that culture with people that you trust.
Yes, sir.
We'll ask about your assistants here. I know a lot of them, and, I've been around. They're good people, man. I've known Frank Smith for years, man.
Yes,
with
sir.
the Holy Ghost together.
Yeah.
So anyway, we wanted to also take you back even further to your time as a head coach at the Monzano, and you had some phenomenal teams there too. You led Monzano to the state championship in 2005 and 2006. Defeated Alamogordo 64-53. A few guys on that team were Matt Kellogg, Jacob Case, and Jacob was a heck of a player, man.
Awesome.
Talk about that champion run. It was almost 20 years ago, Coach, as the first
Crazy.
of your 5 total state championships and miss all your recent success. Sometimes people forget. I know you don't. You're in the moment right now, but you look back, you had some very good teams at Monzano. Chancellor Bell played for you, Cesar Cuevas, who's one of my favorite people in the world, So you had some really good teams then. Talk about that team a little bit.
My first coaching experience at Monzano, and it started in 2002. And you think you're ready until you sit in that seat. And I've been around the game all my life and got to, live it and coach with my pops and go through all of his stuff. And then now it's my turn. And so I go to Monzano in 2002, and have people quitting and people getting those emails and those phone calls. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know this was part of the deal, and had a lot of bumps, a lot of adversity, and, a lot of phone calls to Papa Brown and my brother and Coach Hayes, one of my mentors in Oklahoma, and just, hey man, am I doing this right? This isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. And then came the Cesar Cuevas and Chancellor Bell and Jesse Rodriguez. We had this group of kids that came through Volcano Vista, Matt Kellogg, Jacob Case, and they were different. They loved the gym, and they were fine with adversity, and led by C, they were a pretty united group. And our senior year, they went 28-2, lost 2 games where we didn't have a full roster. It was early in the year. And went on this streak where they won about 20 straight, just playing unbelievably together, led by Caesar at the PG position, and going all the way to the state tournament, almost getting upset or losing to Las Cruces High School in a crazy state semifinal game. It was a quarterfinal game, and Gordo Castillo and that crew had to play against those guys, and they were huge. They didn't look big on film, and then in person, I just remember seeing them like, oh man, we might be in trouble. And but had like David Goodlow step up in the second half and figured out a way to win that game. And then we played Santa Fe in the state semis, and they brought how Santa Fe does it. And they had a kid on their team named Julio Rascon, and he was extremely talented and did a great job on Santa Fe, and ended up beating them by 10. And then played Will Bynum in the state finals, Alamogordo, and put Cesar Cuevas on him, and he did a great job on Will. We got out to a great early lead, and we're able to hold on. Very defensive-minded team at Monzano, and ended up winning that championship in 2006, and had all those guys except, well, a lot of those guys coming back the following year, and then made it all the way to the state championship game, losing to Rio Rancho and Marcus Williams and Noah Wolf and company, Daniel Stephenson. But it was another great year. The following year, we're 27-4. So time at Monzano was a special time. And then after that 2007 season, it was time to pack up and move to the West Side.
That was a heck of a team. Some great memories and great teams that you played against and players. Bynum was as good as there was at Alamogordo.
Yes, sir.
And people forget about that. And you had Jesse Rodriguez for a long time when I was working at Monzano Mesa, the multi-generational center. He and I got to be pretty darn close.
That's cool.
I still taught him a few lessons even when I was older, man. We got on the court, and I love Jesse though. I did. I really liked him a lot. I don't know what's happened to him, but Coach, we're gonna go down memory lane, and of course you got to bring up your dad, and son, bear with me. I've got to tell my little side stories here, Nick's.
Please do.
He already knows. But, now, Coach, you know that your dad was my coach at Holy Ghost, my coach, my brother, and my brother more my brother than me, and my brother, has some good memories of your dad. My brother was a heck of a player at Pius, man, and played college, good ball player, taught me a lot. And your grandmother was my teacher. I told you that too. And one time the Lobos were playing in the NCAAs way back when Pat King and Bob Tauber were playing. And I was nervous, like I wanted to, hear, and your mom actually, or your grandma actually turned the game on in the class.
Oh,
it kind of alleviated my nervousness because I'm even a big Lobo fan. Then I was hoping she would. It was during the day.
That's awesome.
She turned it on. So I go back. How many years do I go back with your family, man? And then calling your dad's games, who would just stare at me, and your brother, who I love to death too, goes nuts. And you've got some kind of smart aleck remark. Now I'd say that with much affection, right? You know that me and you are good, man. But you'd have your say, and you guys were all different, man. And we all got along, all of us, after it was all said and done. But we have to ask you about your dad, and rest in peace, the legendary Mike Brown. Taught me a lot. Papa Brown was held in very high regard around the Albuquerque basketball community. You and your brother Danny were part of that 6 state championships in a row, 89 to 94, and I still think that's underserved, under talked about, underrated. 6 in a row, 6, and that's hard to win one, right? It's hard to win one. Tied with Hope Christian for the longest streak of consecutive state championships, and as a few years ago was tied for 7th nationally. Talk about what it was like playing for your dad, and playing with your brother, and being part of that special run, which I know you never ever will forget. Never.
Yeah, it was beyond special. It's why we do what we do now, is because of the experience we got to share with my father and the Albuquerque Academy community, and grew up at that school, and 6th grade to graduating, in 1991. I got to play with my brother my senior year, and to this day, my dad would always say that's his favorite state championship, my senior year, my brother's sophomore year, just because his parents were still alive at that time and were able to watch us. That was the last season they were able to see us play together. And so, it meant everything, the thing that it taught me is, like, if you really love something and you're really invested in it, like my dad was in his profession, then you live it like it's a part of your world and a part of your life. And he was blessed because he had family, and as a part of his profession, he got to coach his kids, and I'm experiencing the same thing right now. And it's surreal. It's special because I feel like, okay, this is what he felt like coaching his boys and having success. I mean, it's so fun to have success too. I mean, the adversity is going to be there. We had plenty at Academy. People don't think we had some, but there was a lot of stories and discipline situations that we went through that my dad, had to oversee. But going through these experiences with family and being able to merge your professional life and your personal life and trying your best to keep it healthy not just for your family, but for the kids around and the other families that are involved in your program as well. My dad had a perfect balance of that. It just seemed like, and at the time you didn't even notice it. You just were a part of it, but you felt comfortable and you felt secure and confident and happy. And he kind of cleared the path. I don't remember a ton of problems because I remember him handling things to where he just allowed us to play and play together and focus on those types of things. And so, when I graduated high school, it was one of those things where it felt complete. It felt like I've had an unbelievable high school experience. And I'm ready to turn the page and move to college and be able to try my best to do something special in college. But it was an amazing learning experience. It was an amazing experience, and one that I'll always remember.
You know what? There's no doubt about it, and I think just you by saying that. Look at Danny coaching Chloe and Isaiah, and you're coaching Hudson and Houston, and it's just the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in regards to that. And like I said, Papa's looking down and he couldn't be any more proud. And I get goosebumps just think about that lineage, the Papa Brown coaching tree. Joe Coleman, Travis Julian, you, Danny. There's a huge tree out there, and all the people whose coaching lives he affected in a positive way. It's a lot of people, man. It's a lot of people.
Definitely.
Nick, go ahead.
Coach, going to switch gears again and talk about, your most recent run, the three-peat. Want to ask you about Kenyon Owino. He's stepped up in the biggest moments. His freshman year in the state championship against Las Cruces, he has 13 points, hit some pretty clutch shots in the fourth quarter. I remember I was at that game. His sophomore year, last year against Sandia, 17 points, 11 rebounds in the state championship game. Then this year against Oregon Mountain, 18 points, 13 rebounds in the championship game. What is it about Kenyon that makes him have his biggest games on the biggest stage in the state championship?
So Kenyon's, he's one of the best, if not the, that I've been able to coach. And he has some obvious physical abilities. He's 6'7" and has guard skills. But he is the most dangerous, as everybody knows, when he gets the ball with his feet in the paint, and a lot of times with his back to the basket. And that's how he grew up. He grew up playing with his back to the basket. But this year, as you know, he helped us break the press. He helped us solidify our defense. He was our anchor. He was our voice. He was one of our voices. Him and Hud and Ryan Gonzalez and David Gutierrez, they were our leaders. Kenyon was the guy in the huddle, that was a strong voice, and what a great voice to have. And the thing about Kenyon that makes him so unique is he has a ton of confidence when he plays, but it comes from being pretty humble. He has this humility about him that he knows that the people around him have helped him and he needs them. And in turn, he knows how good he is too, without saying it, but showing it. And no matter where the game goes, and I've seen him in AAU, no matter how high the level goes, Kenyon has an ability to go with it and even rise above it. And that's what he's done in the last 3 state championship games. His freshman year, Isaiah Carr, we couldn't score at the basket. So Kenyon comes in as a freshman and hits 3 pick and pop threes, changes the game. Last year, we went into the halftime losing to Sandia. Is very similar to this year's game and couldn't score the ball. Kenyon said, I just need these touches. I mean, let me get it to this elbow here instead of, because it's hard to get the ball to him in a low block. And he took over the game in the second half. And then this year, we're not doing great and having some trouble on the glass and not being able to score the ball. So Kenyon guards Brendan Karras in the second half and limits Brandon to 3 points and a handful of rebounds, but does a great job defensively on him. And in the second half, we knew where the ball needed to go, and it needed to go to Kenyon immediately, and we were going to play off of his playmaking. And so he's the ultimate weapon. A lot of people like to congratulate our coaching staff, but I'll tell you, if you guys got to coach him too, you would be great coaches as well. So, yeah, he's been a blessing.
Yeah, Coach. And then the last one I have for you is about your district, District 1. It is such a competitive district. You mentioned the games you've had with Cleveland. Rio Rancho won state in 2016. I think Cibola is on the up and up with Coach Martinez. But I wanted to ask you about some of the battles that you had with the Trisco Heritage. You know, Trisco Heritage had that those back-to-back state championships, and just, you know, over the last 6 years, you guys have been so competitive with each other. I think they're leaving your district next year. So just kind of talk about the battles that you guys had and how competitive that rivalry's been.
Credit to those guys. The Trisco has kids similar to ours. They're tough. They're tough kids, and they got a bunch of kids that are just really good basketball players. And Steve Heredia does he's a really smart coach. He has game plans that he puts together that he can get the most out of his guys and give them the best chance to win. And so, you know, the first time we played them this year, we had a great game plan, and we went into their place and had a great first half and got out to a lead. And so it kind of woke them up, and they're not a team, you know, that you really want to wake up, because when they get angry and competitive, it's just a different animal. And so we played them on senior night and could not get rid of them. We felt like we were going to get a lead. Senior night's not easy. There's a lot of distractions, but they were the biggest distraction that night. And they ended up taking us to overtime, and we ended up pulling away. David Lund had an amazing overtime game. And then we played them in the district tournament championship, and it was the same thing. Like this team, the matchup with the Trisco was hard for us because they're so downhill in transition, and you know, we like to take our time sometimes getting back on defense. And Marquise Renfro was a handful, and Sims, and of course Latavius is just hard to go. We can't guard him 1-on-1, no matter. I don't think anybody can. And so it was one of those rivalries and those games that we always knew. And so we saw them on our side of the bracket, and we were just like, okay, it'd been better if they're on the other side of the bracket, you know. So, you know, if we play them one more time, it's for everything. But when we saw them on our side, we just had to gear up. And to tell you the truth, without telling our kids, we were just planning our practices around playing at Trisco again, you know, and hoping that we could get through some of these early games, but working on transition defense and working on containment on D, and how we're going to score without saying a Trisco. La Cueva's no joke. It was a hard matchup for them, and they caught them, and then our attention turned to playing these La Cueva, and that was a challenge in itself. But yeah, our district at Trisco and Cleveland and Rio Rancho and Cibola, it's what's prepared us for state, and it's given us confidence, you know, in these state tournament games to know we've been through some battles.
Definitely, Coach. Dad, I'll turn it over to you.
You know, you mentioned that about a Trisco Heritage, and I had them a couple times this year, 101-90. They hit 100 points, twice, I think, maybe 3 times. There were 99 another time, and we had them against Rio Rancho. And after the game, Steve Heredia said sometimes you have to let wild horses be wild horses, meaning Renfro and Latavius Morris. You know, and those guys, like you said, they roll downhill, and Renfro in particular, once he scores, he's clapping like, let's go, let's get it, let's bring it. I love the energy. Then he'll make that extra pass. Very intelligent ball player. Kadarius Sims will hit that corner 3. Yeah. That's a tough out. But like you said, La Cueva came to play that night for sure. A couple questions. We're going to let you go, Coach. This wasn't on the list. Sorry, Coach Nunez. I'm not following your outline, but I got to ask you about David Keyote. What kind, the former Lobo who worked out with your big men, Kenyon Owino and David Lund. What kind of influence has he had on the program?
So I've learned a lot from David, and I know you had him on the show, but I met him just randomly. I knew about Dave Keyote, but I met him randomly. I was in the cardio room at Volcano Vista, and I heard this loud Italian voice talking about the Lobos and what they need to do. I think it was the end of when Paul Weir was here, and I was just listening to him. And I was like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. So I just went and introduced myself. And then I was like, oh, okay, I remember you. And so we talked for a minute. I got his number. I said, I have a big that is a homeschool kid, and he needs some help. And he said, hit me up. So that's how it started. He started working out with Sean Alter. And then I went to some of those workouts and was intrigued with his knowledge, and started having my son come to some of the workouts, and then it led to where he was, working out some bigger groups of kids, and all the way to these past few years where he's helped me put just these offensive schemes together and defensive schemes together to where it just simplifies us. We don't have a whole bunch of plays, and we don't want a whole bunch of plays. We want actions is what we call them. We want players that just they respond and react to situations. And he's brought a lot of confidence to the program. The kids have a belief about him, and a lot of it comes from Dave, to where he tells them, you guys are the best team. You guys, if you do these things, then you guys are going to win this game. And they believe him, all the way to the point where I'll never forget, against Cleveland, we were down those guys, and we're in film, and David Keyote stopped the film, and he just said, hey, listen, he says, we're going to do this, and here's why. And he really pumped up the guys who were filling in for David Lunn and David Gutierrez, and that they were capable, and did it in a way that was authentic. It was like real, and said, this is why we're going to do it. And I remember the guys, they started clapping. Like they got up and left the room, and there was a sense, and I felt it too. There's a sense of belief that, hey, we're going to be fine, And so he's helped a lot, man. He's helped grow me. I like not being the smartest one in the room. I might be the oldest and most experienced, and I know what I know, but I mean, I like asking those questions. And we have a couple other guys on staff too. Cuevas is amazing. And another gentleman named Josh Miller, who has been with us for 3 years, and we won championships every year. And he's like a mini me of David Keyote. Like, these guys are intelligent, and takes our program to another level. So definitely blessed to have him.
We had him on the Lobo Legends series. I was blown away by some of what he said about basketball. I've been around the game a long time. Yeah. And, some of the stuff, I'm like, wow, look at the way he dissects and analyzes, especially bigs, what he said about JT Toppin. And he's absolutely right. He's not ready for the pros yet. He's got a little stretch, work on some ball handling skills. He's in the paint. He's nice with that left-hand jump hook. In the pros, that probably won't work so much, and not yet, but he's definitely a player. Thanks for that mention of your assistants too. And we mentioned Frank Smith, who's been with you for numerous years.
Yes.
You
doesn't get enough credit, Ed. Like, Frank has been with us. He's like a day one guy, and he is an amazing person, and he's an outstanding coach. And he's people don't know, but he before every game, he spends about 5 to 10 minutes with the guys and gets them ready. And he's an unbelievable motivational speaker, like, to where the guys there's times where he couldn't make a game, and he'll put it on the phone on a video, and it's part of us. Like, they know that we need to hear from Coach Smith, from Tripp, before we get on this floor. And he's been our C team coach for the last 10, 11, 12 years. And, has tons of success. And then we have Scotty McCall, Cibola grad, joined us this year. And he's another outstanding up and comer. I mean, I say up and comer, but, this is his first year with us. And it was awesome to have him as well. And then we have Jalen Bates' dad, Barry Bates. And Barry is our JV coach, and they went 20-1 this year. And of course, he knows how to win. I mean, he's done it all his life. And him and I grew up kind of together and coached the AAU circuit a little bit together. And it was pretty fun with our daughters being on that team. So sorry to interrupt you, but the staff I have, it's a lot of it's because of them, and it makes my job easy.
Yeah, I know you want to mention that because they give you so much. You just mentioned a lot of what they did. One last question for you, and this is to do with your sons, Hudson and Houston. Do you feel similarities between how you coached them and how your dad coached you and Danny? Is there a lot of similarities there?
I'm trying to have there be similarities because my dad was pretty hands off and I'm more hands on. Hey, have you done this? What about this? Did you think about this? Are you doing this? And my dad never did that. He just supported us and coached us just like we were, his, point guards that came before us. And of course, when we went home, we talked a little bit about it. We always had film. I watched film, but he never made me to watch stuff. And so my brother and I are a little bit more hands-on. It's just our personality. We like to go to the gym with our kids and, and experience this again. It's almost like we're playing again, but living through them a little bit, sometimes too much. But we know that how the right way to do it. And it's the way my dad did it. It's support. It's to love us, love our kids, and just enjoy just kind of like you guys are doing right now, enjoy the experience, the personal experience, and, and enjoy the family. It's very rare to be able to go to your job with your kids, and have them, a part of your 9 to 5. And that's what makes it so special.
Just not leave your mom, Carol, out. Just not leave her out. A very big supporter. And back in the day when you were at Monzano and Danny was at Highland, the split shirt, Highland, yeah. Monzano. And, she's been a huge supporter of you and your brother. And now, and congratulations to your brother and his daughter, Chloe, winning the championship. Yeah. His son, Isaiah, jack shots from 40 feet. He's an 8th grader, right? A lot of confidence. So it's got to be great. And you and your brother have a great relationship. How beautiful is that? And my son and I are lucky to share the broadcasting things that we do. We're very, 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 very fortunate. He goes and does his play-by-play now, and then we flip. He'll do play-by-play, I do color. And how many guys get to do that, man, with your son?
That's awesome, man.
So what you're doing with your family is amazing, and yes, just an extension of what your father did with you and your mother, Carol. Yeah. We cannot forget her, man, ever. I see her in the stands. Still see her there, man. Sure. Coach Nunez, you got anything for Coach Brown left?
No, I don't. Coach, just wanted to thank you so much for coming on with us. And once again, congratulations on all that you guys have accomplished, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Nick and Ed. Appreciate you guys very much. And thanks for doing what you guys do for the community. Appreciate you. We all do.
Greg, Coach, we look forward to talking to you again next year. Me and you, I think I've interviewed you several times, so I'm sure we'll be interviewing you again next week. For my co-host, Nick Nunez, or Volcano Vista head coach, Greg Brown, who just won his 3rd straight championship. I'm Ed Nunez. Thanks for joining us on Road to the Pit, a high school basketball journey.